All right, part two of our review for chapter two. 2.2 was the chapter where we didn't spend much time. Really, the main part of this chapter that you needed to know about was conjecture. Now, I did mention the definitions for inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning, and also counterexample was very important. We did not focus on law of syllogism, which is also known as chain rule, or law of detachment. Again, they're two laws that are pretty easy to understand, but I will not be asking any test questions about those two laws because they're not something that we have to cover anymore. But let's go ahead and talk about all the questions here. So on number 8, make and test a conjecture about the difference of any two odd integers. Well, we can kind of do this by trial and error and see what's happening. So if we go through and just start subtracting some numbers, let's see here, get my writing utensil. Let's say I subtract 7 minus 3. Well, we get 4. All right. Let's then do 5 minus 1. That's also 4. Now, will I always get a 4? No, that's definitely not true. If I did 9 minus 1, that's going to give me 7. Well, sorry, not 7, 8. Now, I got 4, 4, 8. So lots of conjectures that we can make at this point. Again, a reasonable conjecture at this point would be, well, maybe they're multiples of 4. But again, that doesn't make sense if I start doing higher numbers. The one thing that is true about these is that they all seem to be even. Now, we do have to be careful with this statement. Again, we are making a conjecture, and then we're testing it. So let's, again, use some bigger numbers. How about 21 minus 15? Well, 21 minus 15, that's going to give us 6. So again, still an even number. So a good conjecture here would probably be that an odd number minus an odd number is going to give us an even number, or the difference between two odd numbers is an even number. Now, there is one thing that would not work out with that. But again, we're just making our own conjecture. So again, I'm fine with that as a statement. So odd, if I said something like odd minus odd equals even. The only one that doesn't follow that rule is 0. Is if we got an outcome of 0. Because 0 is usually not considered as even or odd. But that's the only exception that I can think of. Now, it does have to be an integer because we could have positive or negative numbers. So if I subtracted a bigger number, let's say, oops, not 10, that's not odd. 11 minus 15. That gives us negative 4. So it's still even, but it's a negative even number. So again, we just have to be careful. All right, let's go ahead and do number 9. Make and test a conjecture about the product of an even and an odd integer. So for an even and an odd, let's say we do 2 times 1. Well, 2 times 1 is 2. All right, let's say we do 4 times 5. That's 20. Again, by going through this, we can say maybe that an even times an odd is going to give us an even integer. Again, we can keep testing it, but I would say even times odd equals even. Because no matter what, if you're multiplying by an even number, an odd number, you'll always get an even number. All right. And again, if you want to be more specific, you could say even integer and odd integer gives us an even integer. All right, number 10. This one is using law of detachment. Now, I know we didn't go over law of detachment, but it's not going to be on the test. However, if they gave you something like this, it's not a hard question to reach a conclusion about. So if an angle is a right angle, and then the angle measure is 90 degrees. All right. So then they tell us right away, B is a right angle. Well, by the logic that was provided, if an angle is a right angle, then the angle measures 90. So if angle B is a right angle, then angle B measures 90. That's it. Law of syllogism, also known as the chain rule. So this one is a lot like our idea of transitive property. You're tying two things together. You're starting with one thing, going to the next. Then with that one, you're going to the next. So here you have two statements. It says first, if x equals 3, then 2x equals 6. If 4x equals 12, then x is equal to 3. So notice this part and this part repeated. So what can I do then? I can combine the statements of these other two, because if this was true, then we had the fact that x was equal to 3. And if x is equal to 3, then this was true. So I'm just going to rewrite this as if, I'm going to keep the original hypothesis from the second statement, 4x minus 12. Then the conclusion from the second statement, 2x equals 6. And that's it. All right, on number 12, the wolf population. Describe whether inductive reasoning or deductive reasoning was used to reach a conclusion. Inductive is when you're looking at information and you're taking a guess, making a conjecture. Deductive is when you're using laws and properties. So to make a conjecture, you're using inductive reasoning. If you're doing a proof, you're using deductive reasoning. The wolf population in a park has increased each year for the last 10 years. So the wolf population will increase again next year. Is that inductive or deductive? We've recognized there's a pattern happening. So since we've recognized a pattern, and then we're making an assumption based off that pattern, we've reached a conjecture, and that conjecture is that it's going to increase again next year. It's not based on laws, it's not based on rules, it's not based on theorems or any other properties that we know. Again, we recognize a pattern, so this is inductive reasoning. All right. And whoops. This does not want to write very nice. I know my writing is usually not great, but this is even worse than usual. Inductive. I gotta write slow because this computer's lagging right now. All right, next one. On 13, it says the dew point is the warmest temperature at which relative humidity reaches 100% on a given night. The relative humidity reaches 100% at the moment the temperature drops to 72 degrees. So the dew point is 72 degrees. So on here, again, we were given a statement. We followed the rule that was provided. And since we're following a rule that was given to us, that would have to be deductive reasoning. So again, much like doing a proof. Again, trying to write slow so that it picks up. All right. Any more? Let's see. That was 13. Nope, that's the last question for that section. So that was 2.2. Yeah, the next video will be 2.3.